Thank you. Thank you. So, if you've been following this campaign, which I'm sure you have, some things that really make me angry of late, they really do make me angry, is when it comes to geographic locations, when it comes to the leaders. And by the way, 3 days after not being able to name a foreign leader that I admired, I still haven't come to grips with that. And never having been involved in politics before becoming governor of New Mexico, one of the things I was really surprised at were all of these people that I held up on pedestals that I came to meet for the first time. And what I realized were that, you know what, they were so many of them were placeholders. They weren't concerned with policy. They were concerned about getting reelected. And so I was jaded in that regard. But when you look at dotting the I's and crossing the T's on geographic locations, leaders of foreign countries, you know, that's a function on Google that lasts about 5 seconds. But when you consider that we're gauging our leaders or their ability to lead on their ability to answer those questions, when they're not answering the questions on our military interventions and the fact that we support regime change and we put our military in this horrible, horrible situation of being the world's policeman. So our men and servicewomen are getting killed, they're getting hurt, they're getting maimed. There's a psychological consequence that goes along with being involved in these countries where hundreds of thousands of innocent people are being killed, and our leaders are putting them in that situation. That is untenable, and that has to stop. When you look at Aleppo, when you look at Syria, we got the west side of Aleppo. Let's see, that's Assad and the regime. And then on the east side, we've got the Free Syrian Army that we support. But they're hand in hand with the Islamists that we don't support. And we arm the Free Syrian Army, and those arms end up in the hands of the Islamists. And then we've got Raqqa, and Raqqa, let's see, a lot of that came about because of our invasion of Iraq and Saddam's henchmen fleeing to Raqqa and organizing what 2 years ago we didn't even recognize as ISIS, but now today we recognize as ISIS. And we support the Kurds against ISIS, but the Kurds are sideways with our Turkish ally that aren't as good an allies as they were before we invaded Iraq. You can't make this stuff up. And that's what we're doing. And that's got to stop. Yes. Juan said it. Nick said it. We're leading among independent voters. 28% of America says they're Democrats. 26% of America says they're Republicans. And you look at these presidential debates, the Presidential Debate Commission made up of Republicans and Democrats with absolutely no desire at all to see a third party on stage representing what I think are the majority of Americans, and in this case, it's independents. And then among young people, we've just pulled equal to Hillary among millennials. And the largest demographic group that exists in America today. And a report that's coming out that she's spending tens of millions of dollars to discredit me, which is tens of millions of dollars more than we have to spend on this entire campaign. That is outrageous. That is just outrageous. But that's where we're all at right now. We're all at this inflection point in America, and we do have a chance to change things. And a third demographic poll that I just think really bears repeating over and over again: we're leading among active military personnel, which just speaks volumes to the fact that what we're saying makes sense to the group most affected by these policies. I've lived my entire life telling the truth. And when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. And when you tell the truth, okay, so we all make mistakes too, right? All of us. But when you tell the truth, that means that you acknowledge mistakes. And there's no quicker way to engage in fixing mistakes than acknowledging them first. I think the unforgivable in life is hypocrisy. Saying one thing and doing another. Bill Weld and I are not hypocrites. And Bill Weld, beyond my wildest dreams, Bill Weld is my running mate. Bill Weld was a role model for me prior to becoming governor. Bill Weld in 1997, to refresh your memories, was nominated to be ambassador to Mexico, but his ambassadorship was blocked by Jesse Helms because Bill Weld in 1997 was pro-gay rights, he was pro-woman's right to choose, and he was pro-medical marijuana. This was in 1997. I've got one bit of advice for all of you here today. If nothing else comes out of this, this is my advice. And my advice is worth exactly what you pay for it, which is nothing. But my advice is to take whatever it is that you know and apply it entrepreneurially. There'll never be a greater reward than creating your own job or creating jobs for others. And government is making it more and more difficult to do that. Count on certainty that it will not be more difficult with Bill Weld and myself as president and vice president. I do think that the model of the future is the sharing economy, and it's really exciting. I do think the model of the future is Uber. It's Uber everything. It's Uber accountant, it's Uber attorney, it's Uber doctor. It's eliminating the middleman. It's allowing for you and I that provide goods and services to directly give those goods and services to the end user. End user pays less. We're able to make more. That's the sharing economy. Airbnb. Everybody wants to come. This is about the time of year when everybody in the world wants to come and visit Phoenix. So Airbnb, I mean, it's a way that all of us can make extra money. But government is moving in on Airbnb. Government is moving in on Uber. No, you all know it. You all know it. I was talking to a young woman in Baltimore who got her PhD in science, and she said, I have these horrible student debts. But I figured out a way to pay back the student debts, Airbnb. I mean, it was working out. I was making money. I was going to pay back the student debts, but the government stepped in and said no to Airbnb. But this is the future, and I have to tell you, government is going to launch a tax when it comes to the new economy. And when it comes to that new economy, Hillary's going to be right in the middle of that saying, no way, you know, protect the status quo. So certainty, elect Bill Weld and myself, certainty, taxes will not go up. Neither... In our each of us, Republicans, serving in heavily Democrat states, each getting reelected, being fiscally conservative over the top. The two of us didn't raise taxes 1 penny over the 2 terms each that we each served. I just think it speaks volumes to the fact that people really do appreciate good stewardship of tax dollars. Regulation. Rules and regulation have a place, health, safety, but regulation when it comes to protecting those that have money, that have influence, making it harder and harder for all of us to compete, that's what we need to stand up against. Right now, the internet is a way that all of us have equality with everybody else in the world. We can compete with anybody in the entire world, you and I am telling you that there is a slew of legislation right now that's pending that will give those that have money and influence in the internet more money and influence and will restrict your and I ability to be able to compete. There are 3 scenarios in this race right now. One is that Trump gets elected, Clinton gets elected. Look, Congress is about as polarized as it possibly can be. Does anybody think that electing one of those 2 is going to bring that polarization together? No way! No way!
2016, everybody.
Really, you are. Come on, let's give him his due. That is about the biggest piece of bullshit that I've ever heard. Bullshit. That is bullshit. Thank you. That guy and I had breakfast earlier this morning. Don't hurt him going out of here. That was planned. That was. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. And then how about the third scenario, which is electing a couple of guys right down the middle, fiscally conservative, socially inclusive, skeptical of our military interventions, regime change, and free trade, believing that free trade is about more U.S. jobs, not less U.S. jobs. How about that third scenario? Hiring libertarians, Republicans, Democrats, you know, no dog in the fight politically. This is really about America, people before politics. Calling out both sides to come to the table to deal with the issues that are facing America. I think you can make a case that that third scenario actually has the opportunity of succeeding. I wholeheartedly agree with Donald Trump on his #1 issue in this campaign. I wholeheartedly agree with Hillary Clinton on her #1 issue in this entire campaign. Don't vote for Trump and don't vote for Clinton. Keep government out of my pocketbook. Keep government out of my bedroom. Fiscally conservative. What's fiscally conservative right now? Bill Weld and I are pledging a balanced budget in the first 100 days. Why is a balanced budget important? It's important for young people. I'm going to get my health care, I'm going to get my retirement, but who believes that young people are going to be able to survive what is going to be the bankruptcy of America if these issues aren't dealt with. It's not an option to say nothing regarding these issues. They have to be dealt with. The military itself, with the BRAC Commission in the mid-90s, the military itself presented that 25% more U.S. bases could be closed. And that is not in any way to take away from the fact that we should have an invincible national defense. If we're attacked, we're going to attack back. But there isn't any aspect of government that can't be more efficient. And by doing that, we do that for young people. We do that so that there is a future. At some point, there is going to be whiplash inflation to go along with a $20 trillion debt. We should be, as a country, embracing immigration. We're a country of immigrants. The deportation of 11 million undocumented workers has a basis in untruth. That's what it has a basis in. We should make it as easy as possible for somebody that wants to come into this country and work to be able to get a work visa. And a work visa should entail a background check and a Social Security card so that taxes get paid. Building a wall across the border is not something that we should be engaged in. And if there is any country in the world that we should be embracing, it should be our neighbors, Canada and Mexico. Believing in free markets. Look, free market is devoid of government interference. Government interference is when government picks winners and losers, and they do that politically. It's payola. It's pay to play. It's giving donation to receive something. And I'm afraid that Hillary Clinton is guilty of those things. I do believe that term limits is a silver bullet. If politicians were limited to a couple of terms in office, they would do the right thing as opposed to whatever it takes to get reelected. We would not have a $20 trillion debt today if term limits were in place. I think the economy grows with certainty. I think jobs grow with certainty. In the 2012 cycle, Rick Perry was beating his chest over the fact that he had the best record on jobs of everyone running for president. Well, actually, they did an analysis, and it was Gary Johnson. And my response then is the same response that I have today. I did not create one single job as governor of New Mexico. Government doesn't create jobs. The private sector does, but government can provide certainty. Government can provide equal opportunity. And the fact that I vetoed 750 bills as governor of New Mexico, I got to tell you, a lot of that legislation was giving advantage to those that already had advantage and were paying for more advantage. Equal opportunity. It is something that government can, in fact, accomplish. Healthcare in this country. What's needed when it comes to healthcare is just a free market approach to healthcare. And by the way, healthcare is as far removed from free market as it possibly can be. If we had a free market approach to healthcare, we would not have insurance to cover ourselves for ongoing medical need. We would have insurance to cover ourselves for catastrophic injury and illness, and we would pay as you go in a system that I'm going to guess would cost about 1/5 of what it currently costs. Government could create an environment of competition, allowing all sorts of alternatives to healthcare that would start with the problems of healthcare, not dealing with the end result. That would be the starter. But right now, I have to agree with Chief Justice Roberts that President Obama's health plan is a tax. My insurance premiums have quadrupled. I hadn't been to see a doctor in 3 years, but I had to see one last week to deal with a physical and the fact that others were talking about physicals. But my insurance premiums quadrupled. And look, if there was a free market approach to health care, we would have all sorts of alternatives. We'd have advertised pricing. We would have advertised outcomes. We'd have stitches are us. We'd have gallbladders are us. We would have x-rays are us. Advertised pricing, advertised outcomes. When we go to the doctor right now, we have no idea what it's going to cost. The person at the desk has no idea what it's going to cost. And when we get the bill, we know that nobody's going to actually pay this. Well, people's choices always come down on the side of people being able to make their own choices. As governor of New Mexico, I was more outspoken than any governor in the United States regarding school choice. That we could do the same thing for education, bring competition to public education. Now, as President of the United States, what should the federal government do when it comes to education? Well, it would be to get out of the educational business. That's what it would be to do. Right now, Arizona gives Washington 13 cents, and then Arizona gets back 11 cents. How do you like that equation, that bureaucratic wash and dry cycle? And then they send back 11 cents and they say, Arizona, you have to do A, B, C, and D to get your 11 cents. Well, it costs Arizona 15 cents to comply with the 11 cents. So how about just allowing that extra 6 cents to remain in Arizona from the very beginning? 50 laboratories of innovation all across the country, and we would have some fabulous success as opposed to one size fits all. And I think that all of us think the Department of Education was established under George Washington. The Department of Education was established under Jimmy Carter. And I got to tell you, I don't think there's been anything value added to the Department of Education since that has happened. And there are other departments in the federal government. Housing and Urban Development. That is long gone. Department of Commerce, I really think it exists from a crony capitalism standpoint. And there are agencies within these departments that probably should survive, but the entire department survive? I don't think so. And Homeland Security, bringing together 22 different agencies, just put them back in the agencies that they came from. Why is it that government doesn't make any mistakes when it comes to reorganization? Business, of course, does. They suffer for it. But in this case, look, let's do away with the Department of Homeland Security. What do they do? What do they do? Always coming down on the side of personal choice, allowing you and I as individuals to make choices in our own lives that only affect our own lives. If choices we make in our lives adversely affect others, that's where government does have a role. But believing in marriage equality, believing that it is constitutionally guaranteed. On the issue of abortion, how can there be a more difficult issue that anyone could possibly face? And when I say anyone, the woman involved. But who but the woman who is involved make that choice? It needs to be the choice of that woman involved. And I know you've got it on the ballot, and let's make it happen. Let's legalize marijuana in this country. Yeah. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. We have 2.3 million people behind bars in this country. I refuse to believe that we are any less law-abiding than any other country in the world. We have tens of millions of Americans who are convicted felons that but for our drug laws would otherwise be tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. Let's bring an end to the war on drugs, and it starts with legalizing marijuana. All lives matter, okay? All lives matter. But black lives matter, and here's why. Black lives are being shot 6 times that of whites. When it comes to getting pulled over, if you are of color, there's a 4 times more likelihood you will end up behind bars than if you're arrested on drug-related crime than if you are white. So there is a discrimination that exists in this country right now. We need to come to grips with it. I think we've had our heads in the sand over it, and I put myself out there first and foremost as having my head in the sand over this issue. But let's come to grips with it. Let's bring an end to this discrimination. I absolutely support the Second Amendment to the Constitution. That said, should we be open to a debate and a discussion over how we keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill? Yes, we should be open to a debate and a discussion on how that happens. Should we be open to a debate and a discussion on how we keep guns out of the hands of would-be terrorists? Yes, we need to be open to a discussion on how we might be able to make that happen. Talking about mistakes, all right, making mistakes. When I got elected governor of New Mexico, I supported the death penalty. But after being governor of New Mexico, what I came to recognize and reversed myself on it is that it is flawed public policy. There may be up to a 4% error rate on the death penalty. I don't want to put 1 person to death to punish 999 that are guilty, much less put to death 4 people to punish 96 that are guilty. So it is flawed public policy. When you realize that it costs less to lock a person up for the rest of their lives than to put a person on death row, because when you put a person on death row, there comes all those appeals that go along with the attorneys, but then you find out that someone is released from death row because they are categorically proven to be innocent. You can't put a value on those attorney fees. Governor Ryan, in the 90s, if you will recall, ordered a review of everyone on death row. 36 inmates on death row in Illinois. Over 20 of them were released because they were categorically proven to be innocent because of DNA testing. So death penalty as public policy, it's flawed. It just doesn't work. The military in polls, as I mentioned, we are leading among active military personnel. In that context, based on what I know,
Hey, give her some air. Give her air. Okay. Spread out. Don't everybody get up there.
she's all right. She just fell over. So, I mean, she is all right. She's sorry that she's causing this commotion. You don't have to be sorry for causing this commotion. Based on what I know, I would pardon Edward Snowden. Has life in this country ever been better? It's never been better. We get along with each other better than ever. We communicate with each other better than ever. Our kids are smarter than ever. The number one law enforcement that we have is the smartphone in our pockets. Look, we have issues, but as a country, we're going to deal with these issues. I pledge to you, if I am elected President of the United States, I will be the most frugal president ever elected in your lifetime. If you can't lead by example, then you shouldn't lead. You know, this is so cool. I'm asked this all the time. You know, it's got to be really cool to be a former governor. And I have to tell you, and this is the reception that you've all given me, and I am so honored by it. But in New Mexico, people wave at me with all 5 fingers, not just one. And I thank you for waving at me with all 5 fingers. I cannot thank you enough. You all rock. You just rock. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.